we're breaking our cherry
tonight. Yeah, breaking the cherry in the new studio.
In the new studio.
I feel quite honoured, to be honest.
Well, I've never had my chair. And hello, welcome. Hey everyone. Yes, you're probably used to seeing us in the other studio down on the opposite side of this isolation wall. G'day guys. It's Mastering Music, Mastering Life. Hello, welcome to the podcast. And I'm Tony Jack, the Bear Mance, in our new studio, I guess you could call it. I'm so thrilled to have as my first guest in the new studio, in the new look, in the new everything. For those of you who are checking us out on audio, it means nothing to you, so don't worry about it. But, Michelle Grace Hunder. Is it Hunder or Hunder?
Hunder.
Hunder.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. It's nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you in person too.
Known each other on the internet for a little while, but
we have indeed.
Yeah.
And we've been following.
Hey.
Look, see,
technical difficulties.
This is the beautiful thing. See, this is all good. We're still going.
Yeah, we're good. We're just not as well lit from this side.
For all the audio people, basically, one of our lights just went down, but that's okay. Anyway,
yeah.
We have been checking each other out, so to speak, online, and it's really good to have you here because, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, because I think for the work you do, one of the reasons this podcast exists is I just like talking to people from different aspects of the industry who have achieved and done really good things, which you have.
Thank you.
Talk about their journeys, about why they got in, what they overcame, what the struggles were, and just share whatever they want to share with people. And also, being female is an added bonus. And again, I don't champion any particular women's rights cause, or I'm a feminine. I don't pretend to be any of that stuff. But as I mentioned to you earlier on, one of the things I've been conscious of is that we've got an amazing, talented array of women in our industry that are movers and shakers, that are decision makers, that are trailblazers and doing amazing things completely in their own right. And so I think, if we want to inspire kids to get in amongst the action, so to speak, if a young woman is listening or watching, it's all good for me or people like me to be able to say, hey, listen, we want more women involved, and we support women in industry, and that's all good, but nothing speaks to a woman like another woman.
Yeah, I think it's definitely really important to show that it's possible to get to a certain level, because I think that's one of the biggest barriers is that there's so many gaps in certain places because like if you can't see that it's woohoo, there's like if as a young girl, if you can't see a pathway to a certain area of success, it can be a lot more difficult to see yourself in that position. So I think it's really important to highlight the women that are really doing those really amazing things. There are so many. And so it's super cool.
And this is where it leads me to, by the way, for those of you who don't know, this is
it's my very dirty copy that came out the back of my carpet.
Of your book called Rise.
Yeah, so that came out in 2014, and that was it's a photo documentary of the Australian hip hop scene. I think there's 182 different artists that feature in that book.
Is that boy Briggs in there?
Yeah, of course. I think he was like the first person that I shot. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
Being a shepherd and
Shep girl that I am.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. So so his book, and tell us about the other project.
Yeah. So after I did that project, like I said, I shot 182 artists, and about 10 of them were female, and I was I was just a bit confused of why there was like this kind of really big gender disparity. And obviously this was in hip hop, but as I started to do my research, I actually saw that was kind of across the board in all genres. There's a really big gender disparity. So wanted to do a project on that, and obviously shine a bit of light on all the incredible women that are currently performing and making music in Australia. But I also decided that photos wouldn't do that justice. So I asked my incredible filmmaker friend, Claudia Sangiorgi Dallamore, to come on board. And, we basically spent 3 years.
Can you just say her name again?
Claudia Sangiorgi Dallamore. Sometimes if you say it with your hands, it's
is that a full name?
That's her full name.
Is that like a hyphenated?
No, that's. I actually think there's an Anna in there somewhere that she doesn't use, but it's her full name.
Wow,
so yeah,
that's awesome.
And she uses it like Michelle Grace Hunder. Yeah. We often joke we've both got 3 words in our names and they're very long. Yeah. She's an incredible filmmaker, and we spent 3 years making a documentary as well as taking photos of Australian women in music, and we had a preview of the documentary that came out in November at Face the Music, and we're doing a premiere in May, and we're going to be touring it around the country this year. So it's a big year. It's called Her Sound, Her Story. We're really, really proud of it, and super excited for everybody to see it. I think it's very timely.
Yeah, and you were saying how before the podcast you were mentioning about our friend Anna Laverty.
Yes, she's in the documentary,
Who's in the documentary, and how that small snippet of her being in there. And tell us the story.
Yeah. So I just saw Anna the other day. She was on a panel with Claudia and I. We were doing a Women in Music and Film panel, and we saw her, and she was saying that. So we had a preview screening, which most of it was our friends, but there was a very small amount of tickets that were for sale. So there was a few general public that came, and she was saying from that small preview of the documentary, 5 girls had actually contacted her to do intern or mentoring kind of through her. So, and she was just blown away by that. There was that many girls from that one screening. So that's really testament to the fact that it's really important that we show girls that pathway, and it's really inspiring for young girls to see that. And we hope that once people see the documentary, that happens kind of across all facets, because we show not just musicians, but there's behind the scenes women that are working at labels, radio hosts, journalists. Like we try to show the women at the top of their game in kind of all the different facets.
And that's important, because I think women generally, there definitely has been a glass ceiling, or there's perception that women, because they're better administrators or better in those PA roles, or more. I don't want to use the word subservient, but they're not necessarily decision-making roles, and not necessarily.
That's been the trend in the past,
where they get to really flex their creative muscle, and express themselves, and without not under anyone else's, under the guise of anyone else, or with
someone taking credit for it if it's all those things.
That kind of shit.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And that's that's really for me, it's really both of my projects of when I've seen so with Rise, it was seeing that this incredible, beautiful Australian hip hop scene that I just didn't feel like was getting the credit it deserved, and it very much so with Her Sound, Her Story. I'm just like wanting to shine a light. Like that's my projects are always kind of about something bigger than myself as an art maker. It's really wanting to shine a light and just celebrate these artists and the incredible. I just find, especially musicians, I find what they do is really, really amazing. So I'm very inspired by artists and musicians.
Yeah, totally. Where do you I'm the first person that will admit I'm no fucking expert when it comes to hip hop. I don't know the real hip hop.
Yep.
I know what I like.
Yeah.
But tell me Australian hip hop, and I know it can be divisive amongst people in terms of they see what it is.
Get myself in trouble here,
but
no, for sure.
Tell me about what your feeling is on.
Yeah.
Because I remember Australian hip hop.
Yeah.
When I mastered an album called Rock the City.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the first time I actually heard Australian MCs.
Yeah. What year was that?
95 or
Wow.
6.
And who were the artists?
Lazy
Grey, Bias B, OGs.
Yeah, just
love those guys.
All those guys,
Awesome.
The guys from Theo from Nuff Said.
Yep.
So it was OG.
OGs, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Now, at the time doing that record, I had no idea what it was potentially going to go to. For all I knew, it was just a fucking novelty.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think for a lot of people, for many years it was. Do you know what I mean? Like it really struggled to get any credibility or mainstream recognition for a very long time. Yeah. It was a hard slog there, I think. Yeah.
I think probably wasn't until I think Hilltop Hoods definitely. I think they were.
I always say that the one, I mean, for me personally, I think 1200 Techniques, who came just a little bit before the Hilltop Hoods, who really broke through the mainstream.
Yeah.
And then the Hilltop Hoods came through.
I think you're right. And apologies to Peril.
Yeah.
I do feel really bad because I did their first albums.
Well, it's funny because I feel like, I mean, people remember the Hilltop Hoods, obviously.
Yeah.
And I do feel like 1200s do miss out a little bit on that recognition. But, for me, it was definitely when Karma came out. I remember hearing that single and going, wow, like, I mean, I've listened to hip-hop my whole life, but I would never listen to Australian hip-hop before that song.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think probably because Enfer is not your classic Aussie hip-hop stuff, again, because he raps with these. But he still raps the way he raps because that's how he speaks. He doesn't rap with an American accent, but it's not that really Australian accent, which I think to that point people were hearing. Yeah.
He had kind of a hybrid accent, and he looks, the way he looks as well. So it's like he's obviously darker, and it just, I guess, from a mainstream perspective, maybe people were like, oh, that looks more what we've used to seeing from an American point of view, I guess.
Yeah.
But not taking anything away from Enfer, he's one of the most talented MCs we've ever had in this country as well. So there's also that.
No doubt. No, and just going to say that film clip too.
The Karma one with the puppets. It's so great.
For those of you who haven't checked it out,
you need to see that video clip. It's so good.
Isn't it fucking amazing?
It's so good. Timeless.
I remember Peril was telling me, like, because they actually went to, those were recorded, I think it was in Chungking in America, which is the, Run DMC, like every fucking hip hop band worth their salt recorded this place. So Peril being Peril.
Yeah.
Just wants to do it all fucking proper. The amount of money that they dropped on that fucking record,
wow.
I think they almost sent Rubber fucking broke during the process of it. But you know what? It just goes to show, though, when you back yourself and you put your money in your mouth,
totally.
whether it's your own or someone else's.
Yeah.
But still to create. And you talked about this on another great podcast for Sean Fitzsimmons of the Daily Hustle. For those who shout out Sean, fucking
legend,
Fitzy, fucking legend. Where you talked about the legacy and the importance of we do things, and this is how you've left a legacy in your book. This documentary. And
that's really important to me. I think I came to that realization a couple of years ago. It's like, what are you leaving on the world that's a positive thing? And it's not just about creating beautiful photographs that people are going to like and then forget about, but actually solid, tangible things that are trying to either change or leave, make a mark in a certain way. So that's really important to me in all my projects that I do.
Yeah. You got an incredible amount of fucking emotional maturity, girl. I've got to say.
Oh, thanks. I am nearly 40, so that could be why. I look younger, don't I?
You look way.
Yeah, no. I'm 40 next year, so.
Wow. That's amazing. Don't you find that our industry is one, though, that it keeps us young?
Definitely. And I think also, having friends that are a lot younger that are artists and being quite connected, because I do a radio show as well. So
tell us about that.
Yeah, so I do a radio show on Kiss FM. It's a hip hop show with
no.
I know.
No.
With my co-host Rui and Sosi, who are just amazing. But before, when you're asking me about, where do you think kind of Australian hip hop is going? For me, it's probably the most exciting time right now. I'm really excited about where it's going. There's so many incredible young artists that are coming through that I think we're not influenced by Australian hip hop that we would classify as classic Australian hip hop. They're being influenced by a lot of American stuff, and it's probably more trap sounding, or just more, that's a very mainstream kind of sound, that trap sound. So but just really talented kids coming through. We have a different guest every week, and I'm always blown away, and I think it's just really exciting time. And
so what do you think it's finding its voice? I mean, because to me hip hop as I remember it, and still is, it's a narrative, it's a story. And most of the real hip hop is always about stories from the hood, stories about growing up. If gang banging was your thing, I guess it was that. Where do you think Australian hip hop is finding its voice now?
I think, you definitely saw this with the Briggs and Trials project, AB Original, doing so well. I think giving voices to our Black artists, which is just, it had been, it just wasn't the mainstream stuff that was, not that they weren't making stuff, it just wasn't as, I guess, not popular, because they definitely still had their fans, but just wasn't breaking through. I think definitely noticed over the last 5 years with artists such as Remy and definitely Briggs, and Briggs also having his own label.
Yeah.
And he's got I think 5 or 6 young Indigenous kids coming through that are so talented. I shouldn't say kids because some of them are a bit older. I know Birds. Yeah. He's a bit older, and he's got a kid himself. But incredibly talented Aboriginal artists coming through and giving those people a voice. And that's the stuff I think that is resonating with a lot of youth now. And on the flip side, there's a lot of young African kids that are coming through, so that are African heritage, so that might have been born here, but they're inspired by stuff that's from the States, and giving their youth a voice. And that's what I don't think had been heard previously in Australian hip hop, which is totally fine. I think the different stories that we heard for a long time was the reality of what it's like here. I just think the narratives, there's a bigger narrative about the experience in Australia. I think, like Omar Musa is a really amazing Muslim rapper. Alfresh the Lion, he's a Sikh rapper. Like, there's all these different guys that are doing, and girls, doing really amazing stuff. That's the other thing. The females coming through right now, like the girls, my God, I can't even keep up with the amount of women that are coming through. And that, for me, with my experience with Rise, and obviously really struggling to find a lot of women 5 years ago, has completely changed. And there's really great women doing amazing stuff across the whole country. So it's really exciting time for me.
So one of the other things that what I wasn't aware of was that you mentor women. I mean, but you actually do mentor women.
Yes.
And someone that is in that field of my own. Tell me about your work doing that, and tell me who are your mentors. Who do you have as mentors now? And who were the people that played the biggest role? You think, or those pivotal?
There's been a couple. So for the mentoring, I do official mentoring through the Push, and I've done that for the last couple of years. I really enjoy. So they assign me one music photographer. It's kind of around 6 months, and there's a certain amount of contact hours you have. I had a really amazing photographer 2 years ago, Juan, who was from South America, and he came over here. He's been living here for a couple of years. So I mentored him kind of 2 years ago, and last year it was a girl named Monique, and that was really great to have another female, and just it's about like helping them anytime they need help. Obviously they can contact me, but it's like giving them legitimate contacts within the industry, showing them how they can shoot for publications, just show how it's done with music photography. Music photography is really, really tricky. It's probably the hardest form of photography to make an income out of.
Why is that?
So the majority of music photographers are not paid. And a lot of people don't know this. So, and when I say music photographers, I'm talking about live music photographers that go to gigs and shoot all those incredible photos that people love and share. And 90% of those people that you see in the pit are shooting for online publications who don't pay. Right. So, and there's a lot. There's just so many people that want to do that because they're really passionate about music. They want to go to shows. You obviously get entry to see, all your favourite bands. You get to shoot them. So it's appealing to a lot of young people. But I guess the flip side of that, when you're giving your work away, is how do you make money from that? So that's definitely part of my mentoring is how to make that transition to make your work seen as valuable, and so you can get to a point where you can charge. And for me, it's been, a process of, it's now 8 years that I've been doing this professionally, and the last probably 2 or 3 years, I've got to a point where the majority of my work that I'm doing is music related. So obviously I do other stuff, you know, might shoot some weddings and I might shoot some corporate stuff, but I would say 90% of what I do now on a day-to-day basis is music. And that's a really hard thing to do in Australia. There's just not many music photographers that are able to do that professionally. So that's something that I'm really proud of, and I've worked really, really hard.
No doubt.
And I want to show other people how to do that and how to value our work and not just give it away to anybody that asks.
And that's a real tough one when it comes to artistic creatives. It's that whole where there's this part of you is like you don't want to overprice yourself.
Oh, it's so
and you don't want to and people think that that's not something that I deal with, and I've been doing my gig for fucking decades and I still got to deal with that too from time to time. But having said that, I've also got to a point now where they say that the market determines your worth, and I think that's true. But I also think that people value you the way you value yourself, and
I would completely agree with that.
and that is something that but I think more importantly, the value though has to be something you got to really believe in your value. It's one thing to kind of put up a front of like, well, I'm worth this much or what have you for the sake of it, but I think it's when your heart and mind are connected in that. And people feel that. I think people feel that when they deal with you, and they know. But that's what people are looking for. And this is what I tell my mentees, is that what people are looking for, it's not always about, I'm not the most talented person on the block or the most decorated or the most accomplished or the most whatever. But they're buying a confidence. They're buying someone that, you know, that they feel they're getting value from, that the investment.
Totally.
I've got this meme that Thomas Overend did for me over there. Yes. Whether you like it or not, I realise it or not, I'm a fucking surrogate member of your band.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God.
I'm that invested.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I feel that way sometimes with with images that you're creating that become album covers or just such big visual parts of an artist. Like, you are an extension of what they're doing. And it's tricky because a lot of musicians hate having their photo taken. But I'm really invested in working with artists to make that part of their brand and as cohesive as possible and all that sort of stuff. It is all connected, and exactly like what you're saying with what you do as well. It's all part of the big picture.
And you are I think it needs that level of interest, because again, it comes from that whole aspect of like, think about it from the perspective of someone you're dealing with. Like, what would you want to see from someone? A photographer that's gives a fuck about what I'm doing, or someone who's just there because, hey, that lease payment on my Beamer is due tomorrow, and
I couldn't agree more.
$400 short.
Yeah, no.
You know?
I think, look, people that get into music photography genuinely love it. I think because it's like, if you're in it for the money, you are definitely in the wrong industry.
Absolutely.
I can tell you that right now.
Most definitely.
But when you're going back to talk about mentors, for me personally, and this is the pricing thing's a really interesting one. One of my mentors and very close friend of mine, Nolan Bradbury, who I actually took his photo last week, which was hilarious because he used to take photos of me back in the day. But he's been instrumental in always being able to give me advice in terms of pricing and stuff like that. And one of the biggest pieces of advice he said to me when I was really busy a few years ago, just like from exhaustion, like I was just like nearly dead. And he's like, it's time to put your prices up. And it's always stuck with me when I get to a point where I'm so busy that I'm like nearly dying, time to put my prices up. So it's like, okay, we might get some drop off, but then I'm going to get to a manageable position. And also that thing about what you were saying where people, it's funny, like people do value, like if you value yourself, people do value you. I've noticed that the more assertive that I've been and where I've just said, this is my rates, very, very rarely do I get anyone saying, and if they do, I'm like, well, that's fine. You can't afford me at this stage. That's fine. Come back to me in a couple of years.
Here's the other thing that I've gotten. Sometimes when people irk on a pricing thing, what they're really telling me is, this is what I've learned anyway. What they're actually telling me is, you haven't quite explained what I'm getting for my money. Maybe you need to, and that's not about trying to sell it with more bullshit. It's just that, particularly in the context of what I do, there's still this perceived mystery and myth and shit around mastering. It's some kind of voodoo and stuff. And nothing could be further from the truth. I think that whole black art thing's the greatest bullshit that was ever perpetuated. I think it's laughable. But having said that, there still is this uncertainty about, well, what do you actually do? Why am I here? Like, so sometimes you just need to explain to people more so they can better understand what it is they're getting.
Yeah.
And then when they know, when it's clear to them, I say, oh, okay, well that now it makes sense.
I think some of that is even bigger than just the service that you're giving as an end product, but some of it is just the interpersonal stuff.
Oh,
like if you connect with someone, and I'm sure this is the same with you, that what you're going to get out of the end product is going to be so much better. And I definitely feel like that's probably where I think one of my biggest skills is that I'm a people person. I genuinely love getting to know people. I love connecting with people. I can visibly see it when I'm taking photos of somebody.
Yeah.
I can see them relax. I try to go over and above in terms of making the person as relaxed as possible, and making it fun, and making it not seem like a chore, because like I said before, musicians generally hate having their photo taken.
Yeah.
So what do I do to make them feel comfortable in that environment so they actually enjoy the process? And that's probably the biggest feedback that I get, is that, oh my God, I really love that, or that was the most fun I've ever had on a shoot. And that's what it should be like. Like, it's literally so much fun. I love what I do. I'm so lucky. I take photos for a living. Like,
pinch me.
I know, of my favorite artists and musicians. Like, I have the best job in the world. So, like, of course I want to make that fun.
I have the best job in the world. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But
maybe they're equally as good.
Okay. All right. We can take equal
billing
on the podium, spraying respective bottles of Bollinger on our adoring fans. Yeah, exactly. But you make a very good point there, and that is where speaking of mentors, another guy that mentored me, a guy called Brad Burton, who actually came up with the name of this podcast. He fucking hates it when I mention that. It's
a great name. Good job, Brad.
Yeah, well, no, he comes from marketing, this guy. Yeah. But he talked about this thing in his books called Get Off Your Ass. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a few series anyway. Go check him out if you're into that sort of thing. He talks about the relationship economy.
Yeah.
And that's what we're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was big. But I remember even before that, as a youngster, going around hanging out these studios in the States and hanging around the way the Americans dealt with. And Rick Essig, who was the guy who taught me how to cut vinyl.
Yeah.
This is a place called Frankfurt Wayne, which is like a hip hop mecca. It was known as a black man studio. It was
awesome.
So, but he said to me, 80% of this job is bullshit. And I looked and said, what do you mean by that? Well, this is a people business. This is, you're creative and you're an artist or whatever you are, but really you're selling a service, and it's about people, and it's about relationships. It's about building relationships, fostering relationships, because if people don't like you, and they don't trust you, then you could be the great. And we've seen people that have carved out careers who are fucking amazing, genius in what they do, but they're just fucking assholes to deal with. And people may put up with that up to a certain amount of time because you happen to be either the darling of the scene, or your records are fucking banging it in clubs or on the charts or whatever. But nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
You're never going to be fucking riding that way forever and a day. And then eventually when that novelty wears off, you're no longer, number one on the charts or whatever. You're still a fucking asshole.
Yeah. That's so true.
Right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like, I mean, like you were saying before, you felt like you weren't the best and the most, and I feel that exactly the same about myself. I'm far from it. There's way more talented people out there than me. I do feel like I'm a really friendly person. I feel like I get along with people really well. And that's probably one of the biggest things is like I'm genuinely friends with a lot of these artists now, and they genuinely want to work with me and it's not just once, but you get repeat business.
That's what it's about. Word of mouth is the greatest fucking. You can have all your social branding that you want and all your Insta followers and all that shit. As far as I'm concerned, nothing fucking pays bills like word of mouth.
Yeah, and and for me, like it's not that I'm like it's not a calculated thing. Like I'm really trying to be nice and like I just genuinely am that person, and it just happens to work well. God. It's a hard thing to teach though. How do you say to a young kid like, oh, you just got to be like a nice person, but it just goes, I think,
it goes
it goes a long way. Like, people do talk, and if they like to be around you, then, you know, like if you want to be on tour with an artist, they're not going to take you on tour if you're an asshole and you're like grumpy and, you know,
totally.
Like, you gotta be like.
I also think it's also important, and this is where I tell kids all the time, don't be afraid to take a few risks as well.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll give you a case in point of great little story I got to share with a guy called Andre Ehrman, who killer producer, who masters out of here. Was mixing it here for a while, and you know, he's moving on to other areas of life. But when he first arrived as a kid from RMIT, and I was showing him the ropes and getting him on board, he goes to, I said, listen, I'm just going off to this barbecue. I'll be back in a minute, because we were going to run through everything, how to set everything up and how to make it all work. So I get a text from him saying, listen, I've got a surprise for you. And I thought, okay. I come back, and this motherfucker, before I even bothered to show him, went ahead and just fucking sorted it out and just made something of it and said, have a listen to this. And I'm just like, how could you get angry at a kid?
Yeah.
Now, some people go, don't you fucking touch that shit, motherfucker. You And I'm just going, man, how can I not want you here?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so you got to take risks, but they're always going to be calculated. You know? So, you know, be nice, but also don't be afraid to.
I think don't be afraid to be assertive. Put yourself out there. Ask help.
Definitely.
Ask if you want to shoot an art. Like, I remember one of the first artists I ever shot was Daniel Merriweather. Right. And I didn't know Dan, and I just hit him up on Twitter and said, can I take your photo? And he said yes. And like, it was that simple. Like just put yourself out there. What's the worst thing? Like, they won't reply or they'll say no.
That's it.
And that's like how I started at the start. I'll just hit people up and say, hey, I'd really love to take your photo.
Yeah.
And it just kind of worked, which is great.
I think it's also important too, when you do that, and that is when people want to go out looking for jobs or applying to be interned by people. Actually, don't fucking just carpet bomb the whole fucking world with everyone. Because if you're a kid that has a particular penchant for hip hop, don't fucking go and work in a metal studio.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you can't learn and it doesn't have its merits, or it's a foot in the door is a foot in the door. But if you generally have an interest in a certain area or a certain artist, it's no good you approaching me, for example, and saying, how many times I've had, let me tell you something here, Michelle, Grace, Hunder. I've had many situations of kids who said, oh, I want to be a mastering engineer. Oh, it's the love of my life. Oh, I'd give my fucking left breast for it. That's the blokes. That's the blokes. Okay. Great. All right. Cool. And then you sit down, and then you realize very quickly that it's not really what they want to do.
Yeah.
They want to be producers, or they want to be DJs, or they want to be something else other than.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
They're saying what they want to say because they want to get their foot in the door. That's fine. But I think it's just it's good to do your homework, and think about who you want to deal with, why you want to deal with them, because again, that's going to come across in the people that you're approaching.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Again, it's like it's be fucking honest about it. And if you don't know something, say you don't know something. And if you're just not qualified in a certain area, say so. You know, if you want to work with someone, and it helps to tell people why you want to be with them. Yeah. Because that's what people want to know. It's okay, we all know you want a fucking intern or you want a job, whatever, but why?
Why? Yeah. Yeah.
What is it that turns you crank? What is the thing that lights you up? Because when these kids come to me and they say, I want to be a mastering engineer, and we determine very quickly, it's like, that's cool. Just tell me. Yeah. Because while we're here, we can actually do something. I can point you in this direction. You want to be a vocalist. Okay. Well, I'm not the person to talk to, but
there's
someone
that totally
can, or who knows someone else.
Totally. Yeah.
And we can help these kids that way. So think about who you're seeing, why you're seeing them, do your homework, and be well prepared. I'm not saying be a fucking stalker and go through the people's garbage.
Definitely don't do that.
We're not going to that degree, but at least do your homework.
Totally.
And
I think
be considered in what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think to ask questions about like what's the reality of the pathway as well. Like, because I think when people see, for example, what I do as a music photographer, and it can look very glamorous and like, I get to go on tour with artists and I'm shooting these really amazing famous people, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that's what happens when you're at this level. But the pathway to that is far from glamorous. And are you prepared to go and shoot 200 gigs before anyone even knows who you are? And are you prepared to be there every single week, every night of the week at gigs at shitty venues with shitty lighting and your photos look shit for a long time before you get to a point where, yes, maybe a publication will take you on, or you can actually start charging, blah, blah, blah. There's like a, so what's the reality of that? And are you prepared to do that? Because if the answer is no, then maybe you just want to do it as a hobby, and that's fine. But if you want to carve your way out in terms of actually having a career, it's incredibly tricky. And that's one thing I definitely say to the people that I'm mentoring, or anybody that asks me really, is that it's really, really hard. It's it is that most difficult way to make money as a photographer. You could go and shoot weddings and absolutely kill it every weekend and charge $4,000 or $5,000 a weekend, or you could be shooting gigs and not charging very much. So, so it's like,
One thing that strikes me about you is your positivity. You seemingly have your shit together.
Got you fooled.
That's why I said seemingly.
Yes.
So, but all jokes aside, though, have you always been positive and driven, or have you had to overcome much stuff in your life to because just before you answer, and I will let you answer, but I'm a great believer that most of the people that I've come across, and this is, and I'm not trying to say this is you, but most people I come across, generally, who are the most positive, most driven people, usually have had a lot of shit behind it. So I'm just curious to know, like, what makes you you?
Yeah. I wouldn't say personally I've had a lot of really, really bad things go wrong in my life. I think I had quite a privileged upbringing. My family, both of my parents are Italian immigrants, and they lived in Shepparton, and they, we weren't rich. They worked their fucking asses off. Absolutely, to provide my brother and I the best opportunities. But I also feel like my parents, they always told me I could be whatever I wanted to be.
Awesome.
Always, my whole life. There was no, you're a girl, so you need to do this or anything like that. It was just like reach for the stars, and they've always been incredibly supportive, which is great.
But that's not from my experience. That's not typical of your Southern European post-war migrant family.
No, not at all. Normally, and I think because my mum really wanted to go to university and she wasn't allowed to. So for me, she was always like, I really want this for you because I wasn't allowed to do that. So, and it was very uncommon for Italian girls from Shepparton to be allowed to go to university. And that sounds crazy because that was only 20 years ago, but it was kind of the experience. I went to university as soon as I turned 18. I was obsessed with sports, so I did a sports science degree, and I ended up working in sports marketing for a very long time. I've actually had very, very positive experiences in my whole working career, really, and until the point where I went out on my own to do a business with a group of people. It's very hard to explain this story, but we had stars in our eyes and we're trying to do something that was never done before. And me being the positive person that I was, absolutely, we can do this thing that nobody's ever done before. And long story short, absolutely crashed, burned, failed, like company nothing. Into liquidation, which I have never experienced such trauma. Owed people hundreds of thousands of dollars through this business that just, we just didn't, we had no idea what we were doing, and we crashed and burned really hard. And that for me was the biggest wake up call of my life. One of the main reasons that we did fail was a person that was responsible for the finances not keeping the rest of us up to par with what was happening. And that was a really big learning curve for me. Not having someone else responsible for finances that directly impacts me and my life and my family, and I will never allow that to happen ever again. So that was when I was 30 years old. And so crazily enough, after that, was when I picked up a camera. I picked up a camera at 31. My husband bought me a camera for that Christmas, and he's like, I really feel like, you know, you love documenting things, and I've noticed this. And after all that happened, and I was probably, I mean, I don't think I've ever gone through depression personally. I'm not it just hasn't affected me, and I feel like very lucky that it hasn't.
You are.
But I went through a period of maybe 2 or 3 weeks that were what I would consider a depression, and was very not knowing what the hell I was going to do with my life, and do I have to go back and work 9 to 5? And I was temping and having really bad experiences doing that. And it was when my husband said, I think maybe you should try this photography thing. I think you're really good at it. And I just threw myself into it. And I think I guess I didn't have any other option but to make it work. So I was like, fuck this, I'm making this work.
Yeah. It's interesting what happens when you're when your back's to the wall. And one of my my current mentor, Craig Harper, mentioned this at a group meeting we had, and he said that, and he's put it up, a meme of it anyway, where your 100% perceived effort is actually 40-60% where you actually are.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally.
And that's when, at that point where you said, I got to make it work. You just
I have to make it work.
You dig deep and you just fucking pull rabbits out of your ass that you never realized was there.
Literally what happened.
And you ask yourself, and you think, fuck, how the fuck do I do that? But until you're in that position where you got to fucking shit or get off the pot, you'll never know.
Yeah, and that's like, and also, how do you teach that? So it's really tricky to say, like, you know, I absolutely worked my ass off. Like, I just,
for the record, Michelle has no ass. She walked in the building today, and I thought, I don't normally go there. Well, I want you to know I don't go there, but I just noticed, this is interesting. She has no ass
at all.
Her
it's
ass
gone.
is completely gone.
She's worked so hard. It is done.
It's just, it's evaporated. And,
but yeah, I definitely think that, through it took that, for me, massive epic failure. I think I've been an overachiever my whole life. I feel like anything that I've wanted, I've been able to achieve, and I thought that was going to happen with that business. I was like, oh, we'll just do it.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I don't think I ever want to lose that optimism, but to have that massive failure, eye-opening, public, crash and burn, just absolute trauma, makes you such a stronger person. And I feel like I'll never be in the position where anybody else is responsible for my success. That was one really big thing I learned. I'm not putting any type of financial responsibility in anyone else's hands that could, you know, put me in the dark or anything like that when it comes to my business.
Yeah.
So that was a very important lesson.
Yeah. And you've learned a bit about finances now, I imagine.
My God. Yeah. I mean, like, even the fact, you know, setting up companies like that and proprietary limited and protecting yourself and then putting companies into liquidation, like, that's a whole thing that, my God, I was so naive to. The fact that it costs you $10,000 to put a company into liquidation when you've lost all your money. Like,
how does that work?
I don't know. How does that work? So you learn a lot, and it tested my relationship, my marriage, like everything, like, you know, like, it was such a tricky time. And I think that's why now I'm so thankful for what I do, and my husband and his support, and I love what I do. It's just like, I feel so fortunate. Like, pinch yourself. That's me every day. Yeah. So that's why I think I come across as so positive. I'm just genuinely grateful and thankful for what I do.
Yeah. And never take shit for granted, boys and girls.
Ever. Because it can be taken away. And there's a million really great young kids coming through that are just as good as I am. So, Well,
this is where I've always, and I really should remember that fucker's name. That he was old, like OG fucking Greek, fucking ancient Greek, fucking Hippocrates or Hippocrates or... It's terrible, I should know. But anyway, I'm just paraphrasing.
Okay.
And I love this. And which is, he's saying that everything that you have today once was something that you wished for.
Yeah, that's so true. It is.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important that what we have now in terms of taking inventory, and I know there's lots of fluffy stuff about all the gratitude, but it's so true. Is taking that time to reflect on what you have, take inventory, and take stock. And sometimes we do forget to do that because we're driven, we want to succeed, we want to do better, and that's all good. But when do we actually stop? Sniff the coffee, as they say, take inventory, actually take a look behind you and see, look, how far you've actually traveled, and what you've done, and that's the success. I see it as that's the making it, if you will, of it, is just if you're in it and you're doing it, and every day you can be thankful for what you do, because you and I operate at a part of the spectrum of mainstream society. We're in a minority.
Absolute minority.
And it's not because we're particularly special or gifted or anything. Well, you're beautiful, so that's you've got the unfair advantage there. But that aside,
thank you.
But that aside, we operate in this. But the thing is that it is accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
It is accessible to anyone. It's just that what are you prepared to do? What price you're prepared to pay? What sacrifice you're prepared to make?
The sacrificing is really important. I think, like, you want to be a music photographer, there's going to definitely be sacrifices at the start to get to that point. So you might have to do jobs you don't really want to do.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like corporate jobs or events, or maybe shoot. When I first started, I was shooting at nightclubs. My God, shoot me in the face. I can't believe I did that. But yeah. But for me, it was important to be earning my income from doing photography. So I definitely don't take for granted the fact that now the majority of my income is coming from the stuff that I absolutely love to do. It's working with artists day in, day out. That's I'm so incredibly fortunate. And when you talk about what success is, for me, it's being able to do the majority of my business coming from music, and I'm making a living. Like that to me that's it. I'm successful. I feel like that's
You've arrived.
I've arrived. Here I am.
And that's it. And I think that's you couldn't sum it up better. I totally agree with you. That is success, and you are a success. And this has been quite a successful podcast.
I think it has. It's been great.
It's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got to get you in again.
I'll come in anytime.
Because I've always, again, like I said, I don't pretend to be a champion of the women's rights or feminism cause or anything, but I want to get to a point where we can have a few people come in on a regular basis and bring more of these women. And we'll get Anna Laverty. Anna, I will contact you soon.
She's a legend.
She's an absolute legend. And it's beautiful to see that there are women in our industry that are doing shit, and it's nice to be able in our small way to show young girls particularly who have any aspirations of becoming, whether it's a music photographer or an engineer or whatever, but not coffee maker, PA,
totally.
fucking whatever. Actually being creative and becoming a legit fucking boss.
Absolutely.
Of what you do. So,
more of that.
Yeah.
All
absolutely.
about that.
I'm all for it too. Well, thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been beautiful having you here.
Thanks.
And good luck with the rest of what you're doing. And one of these days I might get you to take a photograph of me.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be amazing. Come down to the studio.
Yeah, we will.
That would be so cool.
That'll be good. That'll be good. That'll be just a good goof.
Yeah.
I'll bring my S&M leathers and shit down, and we'll.
Oh my God.
That's another story for another day.
That would be so great. Okay, cool.
All right then. Well, thank you very much for all those of you who watched and those who have listened. And special thanks to The Cave, who have been very generous in helping support our podcast and our events. And have you been down there?
No. Where is it?
It's Abbotsford.
Cool.
Bond Street, Abbotsford.
Yep.
Rob Farnham and his brother got this place. We were there the other night to see Butterfly Effect.
Oh,
do
cool.
a little pre-gig thing before they they're on their national tour right now. And it's this fucking great space, big warehouse space. It's got a great stage and sound system all set up in there. They do a lot of pre-production. They do a lot of rehearsal space down there, but it's a venue as well. So it's just a cool kind of size. I reckon 350 would be just rammed as fuck, but 150, 200 people in there, it's got a good vibe, it's good size, and it's that nice in between kind of style. From it's not a small little bar, but it's not a fucking big bar neither. You know? So but look,
that sounds great.
It's a great fucking space. And so so Rob and his brother have been very generous and have been helping us out with a little bit of cash to help keep things rolling.
Oh, that's great.
And for our event coming up to have rolling. But anyway, so thank you very much again.
No worries. Anytime. Thank you.
Best of luck. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tom, Tennille, Backline Project.
Yay.
Love you guys. Thanks for all your help. Thanks to all you guys who have checked this out. And we will be up on YouTube very soon. Oh, and we got any contact details for Michelle? Put them up. Okay, so
anyway, don't stalk me, guys.
Website, socials, all that is up.
Michelle Grace Hunder, you can find it if you Google it anyway. All over the webs.
Yeah, and we'll go for anyway. Thanks very much. Have a good one as always. Say please be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. Love you, fucks. Catch you later. See ya. I believe that's the podcast done.